I'm Mark, and I'm really glad you're here. This week, we started a new series at 7 at 7 called Give It a Rest. And it's a really cool series. I'm looking forward to it. Pastor John ministered on Sunday, and one of the points that he made that I really appreciate is that our belief in the giver of life, God, should direct our beliefs, not our life and what goes on in our life. Now, Pastor John used the example of the Israelites after they had left Egypt, and when they spent 40 years just wandering around in the desert. 40 years. And he used Hebrews chapter 3, and I'm going to look at verses 7 and 8 and talk about it a little bit. This is what it says. This is what the Holy Spirit says. Today, when you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts as Israel did when they rebelled, when they tested me in the wilderness. See, God had made a promise to the Israelites, and he had delivered them out of slavery, out of generations of slavery in Egypt. He brought them out. He miraculously delivered them. He brought them through the Red Sea, and he promised them that he would give them a land. He spoke a fact. But the problem was that the Israelites chose not to believe the facts. They chose not to believe God. And they paid the consequences. In fact, only a few individuals who came out of Egypt actually got into the promised land. The rest of them perished in the wilderness. They never entered into the rest. They never entered into the promise. Now, if you read that, you go, man, you guys are just idiots. You're so stupid. Why don't you follow what God says? Look at what he's done. Look at all the miracles. Look at how he's preserved you and delivered you. How can you be so stupid? And yet, we kind of do that all the time. We know the facts, but we choose not to believe them. Yeah, I can eat more food and bring in more calories into my body than I burn them off, and I can still lose weight. Yeah. Oh, gee, I can buy something that I have no money for, and I'm sure I can afford it. Well, wait a minute, you just said you don't have any money. I mean, the fact is, but we choose not to believe the facts. And that becomes a problem. Now, I know in the natural, we have examples. I have an example, unfortunately, from this past weekend. See, I decided to go out and golf for the first time in a couple of years. And in my excitement of wanting to get out on the golf course, I decided just to get out there. And I didn't bother stretching. Now, as a jogger, I know that you need to warm your body up and you need to stretch. You need to get your muscles, all stretched out so that you can do the physical activity. I decided not to. So that unbelief on my part to the facts and my ignoring the facts meant that, well, on hole 3, I kind of threw my back, not my back, but my hip out. And even then I decided to be foolish and I kept on going. And I never made it to the promised land. I never even made it past hole 8. And in the meantime, I've spent the past 4 days with ice packs on my hip and electric muscle stimulation and lying around and wincing and whimpering like a poor injured puppy. That was for 4 days. All because I chose not to accept the facts, but I decided to do it my way. And because of that, I never entered into the rest of where I was wanting to really go. Now, that's a silly example perhaps, but the Israelites, they didn't do this for 4 days. They did it for 40 years. And I wonder how long some of us have continued to walk through the wilderness in our life